Morning, all. I'd like for you to repeat after me. John Maynard Keynes is dead in China. I know this comes across as being a bit to the point, but there has been an enormous amount of attention on China's issuance of a special purpose long-term bond of a trillion renminbi. And there's been a great deal of commentary as well suggesting that somehow this may actually indicate that the Chinese economy is in a far more tenuous position than had been expected. Now, the reason why I wanted to address this is twofold, actually threefold. Number one, the special issuance of this, or the special issuance bond actually was approved, if you will, and telegraphed pretty broadly back in March during the so-called Lianghui, or the National People's Congress meeting. And it was the first time since the lockdowns and through all of the 2023 slowdown of the economy that the Chinese policymakers were stepping in to show that they understood that there was a need for there to be some fiscal support and that this was going to be done through a special issuance. Now, keep in mind that during that meeting, it was also communicated that there would be a trillion renminbi worth of these bonds issued every year over the next 5 years. I believe that that is something which you need to be paying close attention to. It is my position that you will not see any further issuance, and that the whole concept behind the telegraphing of these special bonds was optics, and optics only. As you will all recall, back in March when the NPC was taking place, business and household sentiment was probably plumbing the lowest point that we had seen in quite some time. And it was important that the government was seen as coming out and supporting the economy. This goes completely against anything that we have witnessed over the past several years. From the very beginning of the COVID crisis in early 2020, the Chinese government genuinely has not come out with any material fiscal support, especially for the households, but even to a certain extent for businesses. And the reason why this is important to address, and the reason why I wanted to make this point today, is that over leverage of the economy is actually the primary policy, at least in my opinion, going forward. For the better part of at least 5, I would argue probably 10 years, a key tenet under Xi Jinping has been to try and find a way to deleverage the economy, especially with regard to real estate. Now, this is clearly having an impact. This is clearly being a major focal point in terms of why the economy has continued to struggle over the course of not just the past year, but the past several years. It is viewed as an existential threat to the economy, this issue of leverage. And keep in mind that there is the 2008 and 2009 global financial crisis response to be mindful of. Back then, China did step in with the so-called bazooka of fiscal stimulus, both in terms of direct support from the government, but also effectively opening the floodgates for bank lending. And what I can personally attest to is that the vast majority of those proceeds ended up going into the real estate market, pushing prices up and kind of getting us to where we are today. So all of these issues sort of come together to the point at which special issuance, A, is nothing new, B, is more optics than anything else. And if in fact we are going to see any sort of fiscal support provided, it's going to be done as a scalpel rather than a hatchet. I've just been really surprised, quite frankly, to see all of the conversations that have been ongoing. I mean, 6 months, 12 months, you can't escape headlines that talk about China's need for fiscal support. They need to give stimulus checks directly to the Chinese consumer. Taking a page from the G7 in terms of how it's expected to play out is not how the Chinese are going to operate. So I thought it was important to jump on. I wanted to provide a different perspective. but keep a very close eye on what isn't being done from a fiscal support point of view. Because again, as I stated at the beginning, and as I will say to just about anybody, Keynes is dead in China. I only wish America maybe take a page from this. Over-indebtedness is not going to end well. Just ask the Soviet Union. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow talking about tariffs and what Biden is up to these days. Bye.